Can you all hear me? It's really unfair to send a boring, like, advertising guy to go up after a rock singer. This is the worst break you can get. I'll still try to, however, keep you somewhat amused and try not to delve into the business that you guys all are in and try to make it perhaps a little relevant to all of our lives. I was told that this worked. Left. The right button. Ah, the right button. I'm trying to talk about the death of marketing as we know it. It's the business that we've all been in, and try to make it fun. And talk about what's really happening out there and see if there's a room for all of us and if it makes any difference to us in the way we live. I won't go into the history and stuff. So, you know it. Media has changed around you. Life around us has changed deeply. When I started in digital 17 years ago, it was nothing. And until a few years ago, everybody said digital was a little niche. It's not niche. I wanted to give you some interesting data that certainly in India, digital is not just mainstream, but it's actually bigger than mainstream. If I look at 3 months ago, the number of internet users in India crossed the number of television households. Right? 3 months ago this happened. These are all India numbers. All my numbers refer to India. It's about 108 million people who are online in India today, 80 or 85 million on their desktops, 45, 50 million on their mobile phones. And the rest is the overlap between the two. The only mass medium in India is a mobile phone. It no longer is television. Television reaches only 400 million people. The mobile phone reaches 725 million people. Right? So this is very different from the textbooks that we've all learned and that we've all come from. With digital too, the big change is not really in journalist-driven media or journalist-created media. The big growth is in media created by you and me, in consumer media, media that we've been part of, or what we otherwise call social media. Read in this time has only grown about 3%. In has grown about, in.com, Money Control has grown 2%, India Times has grown 3%. So to account for this huge growth that's happened in India, you have to move to the social side. Blogger has grown 65% year over year in India. LinkedIn is up 400% year over year in India. Facebook is up 890% year over year, probably fueled by everybody at this college. And Twitter is up 1,900% year over year in India. Right? So these are all to the same basis and numbers that we have out there. And it's not just the numbers that are going to make digital bigger out here. It's not just the quantitative. Quantitatively, digital is far bigger than any other medium in India already. It's the quality of the medium that we talk about. It's simply that traditional media has lost enormous credibility. You can see it, there's this big Nielsen study you guys have seen which says that the most trusted media are recommendations from people I know and consumer opinions posted online, follow the brand websites, and television, magazine, blah, 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 all that come much, much later. All the things that we used to trust, we no longer trust. And here are some of the reasons why, right? So readers don't trust their editorial. There's not to, when after Barkha, that the Barkha Gate editorial after the Veer Sangvi stuff. How many of you know this lady? You read her reviews. That's Nikhat Kazmi of Times of India, famous as a paper star. You know, how many stars do you want for a review for a movie? It's on a paper star basis. And actually, because journalism has sold out and has become far more advertising, there's some really interesting things. The first thing is the market realizes this. So if you look at what happened with NDTV, look at the stock price of NDTV since Barkha Gate started. Right? So really, there is a cause and effect that you're seeing out here in the lack of credibility of traditional media. That's really happening out there. So publishers are abandoning journalism. They're really becoming far more market-driven, advertising-driven. Perhaps it's time for advertisers to take up journalism, because consumers still want it, and maybe there's a market for it. Now, you know, for example, this coffee shop only talks about coffee in all its Facebook ads. It doesn't do anything about its own product. It talks about where coffee comes from and so on and so forth. So I see increasingly brands moving towards editorial, and publishers are becoming advertising. It's a strange mix that's happening out there. It's also that, and it's not just that the reach and credibility of digital are much higher than it was before. It's also the cost is much lower. If I look at these top 10 brands on Facebook in India today, the Zuzus and MTV and others, they all have more than 10 lakh fans, which basically means if I do a status update, that goes onto 10 lakh walls right away, free of cost. To do anything like that, I have to probably buy the Times of India in 8 cities around India and get that much of an interested audience. So essentially, media is becoming free. That's an enormous change that's happening out here. Cafe Coffee Day, for example, manages 8 lakh people. It's interesting. It's a footfall-based brand, no digital, set of coffee shops, 1,000 coffee shops in India. They don't do any television, don't do any print, don't do any radio, don't do any outdoor. All they do is digital. In digital, all they do is social. They do nothing else. It's really interesting for a leading brand which is consumer and footfall-based to just say, forget everything else, this is all I'm going to do. So once upon a time, if you were a marketer and you had a 20 crore budget, and another brand had a 200 crore budget, you were very scared because they could outshout you. In this world, it doesn't matter because budgets have kind of gone away. What matters is your creativity. So do you hire a 20,000 rupee creative person or a 20 lakh rupee creative person? That's really up to you. So it's much more within reach because now it really comes down to your brain power and not so much your brawn. That makes a difference out here in this world today. With so much of change in media and the market, it's really obvious that the rules that we all grew up with no longer apply. We all grew up with the rules saying that make a good product. So I'll take really good high-grade plastic, combine with high-grade cotton. I'll put together some really good rubber, and I'll make a product. But actually, the point is my consumer doesn't want that. My consumer is looking for something about speed. He's looking for something to do with determination, something to do with fair play and equality. Essentially, you're talking about exactly the same brand, right? But the way a marketer looks at it is very different from the way today's consumer looks at it. So in effect, what really has happened out here is consumers are buying brands and they're not buying products. Brands exist in neurons, while products exist in atoms. And really, it's this world of marketing that we learn that's turned topsy-turvy. It doesn't. The quality of your raw materials isn't as important as the quality of the chatter and the sentiment about your brand at any point in time. I just looked right now saying, what's the variability of fare between Bombay and Ahmedabad in the next 30 days? You can see it varies 15% up and down. This is how the fares change on a daily basis on the same airline. Netscape was the world's #1 browser. Microsoft came, spent a lot of money building Internet Explorer and gave it away free and killed Netscape in the process. Netscape really doesn't exist. It's now a part of AOL. Microsoft Office was built with billions of dollars, and basically Google came and gave it all away, and is now killing this market doing exactly the same thing. So essentially, the lessons that we learned about pricing are all wrong. Variability, this ability to be flexible about pricing, is really what makes a huge difference from the entire thought of cost plus pricing or any other way of pricing that we've learned. We talked about product and pricing. Let's talk about the third thing. The internet is there in 200 odd countries. Today, your web browser does not need to go through customs, passport control, pay a tax, and go out to a server. Any product is available anywhere in the world, right? The entire issue of placement is not that much of a problem. Distribution is really not that much of a problem. Now we come to the fourth P, which is promotion, which is all what many of us learn. Some of you may remember India.com was a brand that spent 5 crores in one day 8 years ago. They bought the first wraparound cover of the Times of India, made a huge amount of noise, right? Enormous marketing and advertising budget, a portal. And that's another brand. Do you know who that is? That is Savita Bhabhi. So if I look at Savita Bhabhi in blue versus India.com in red, you know exactly what has succeeded. Right. Right. So essentially, you're talking about a product that has consumer demand versus you trying to force something down somebody's throat using a big marketing budget. And there's even in regular consumer products, you'll find that story everywhere. I can take a Red Bull and put it up against a Coke and a Pepsi, and look at the fact that Red Bull doesn't spend anything on advertising, while Coke and Pepsi spends billions of dollars, and these are much higher than the Diet Pepsi, Diet Coke kind of volumes out there. So Red Bull is really up there. It's the #3 soft drink in the US today with a 0 ad spend. Right? So we're really talking about an enormous change where the rules of promotion are different. Actually, less is more. Less beats more. So in effect, everything that we've learned about the 4 Ps, you know who this guy is? Kotler, right? It's time to let go of the 4 Ps. Let him go. Right? The 4 Ps are meaningless in this day and age. The book was written in 1959 based on research done between 1945 and 1955. We're in 2011. Let the man go. Right? The post-industrial internet age needs a very different, approach to marketing. This guy was Newton. There's an Einstein. There's a new world out there. Let him go. If you're still studying him, please make sure it's just for, antique historical value. Don't attach too much importance to this. Right. The new marketing has really a prime driver, real-time decisions. We'll talk about that. When I started in the business, I had 3 months to come up with creative to sell a brand of soap. Today, the product that I handle, the life of the product is 3 months before it's supplanted by a new product. So I have to do my stuff in 3 days and launch a campaign that lasts 3 weeks because the product lasts 3 months. FIFA, the brands of the world, had 3 months to prepare for FIFA and create advertising for that. But there was a 3-week phenomenon called Paul the Octopus, which simply beat everyone else around the world hollow in terms of popularity and publicity. Yet there was not a single brand in the world that could take advantage of Paul the Octopus or build any advertising around it, even though you didn't have to pay him any licensing fees. You didn't even need to give him a fish. You could use Paul the Octopus, right? But nobody did, nobody could, because the brands around the world were not built to be flexible and agile enough to take advantage of these real-time trends happening around them. 3 weeks versus 3 hours. While I was outside, I took a dump of what's really being searched from India right now. So if you look, there's Candice Boucher. Do you know who Candice Boucher is? She's a top search term in Ahmedabad today. I'll tell you who she is anyway. And there's Siddharth Roy Kapoor. There's various other things out here that are trending. Just so you know, Candice Boucher is a Playboy cover girl who makes Bollywood movies. So somebody from this campus has been really searching for her right now. Right? The pictures of this Playboy cover girl, because that's what's really trending from here right now. Okay? But the interesting thing is another trending topic, which is the Economic Survey 2011, is one of the top trending topics in India today, and there's not a single ad out here. There's enormous advertising opportunities going begging. There's huge consumer supply. There's no advertiser demand. There's no product that's being created to be able to answer this demand. So you're now in an age of real-time product and real-time audience and real-time marketing, really real-time demand and real-time supply. Right? The new marketing manager to me, actually, and this is the analogy I use often, is going to be like an air traffic controller. You're going to be sitting at a set of screens, seeing your campaigns in flight around the world, around the clock. You're going to be making some adjustments, making sure that the things take off, they're doing the right thing, they're not crashing into each other, you're not losing money. You're going to log out at 8 p.m., and the next person is going to come, take your shift, and run that campaign through the night in a different part of the world. We are going to move to a model that is very, very different from the way we've learned marketing is all about. It's really going to be far more real-time data intensive, far more real-time gut level and instinct intensive. This new marketing is extraordinarily integrated, hugely measurable, uses an enormous amount of technology, and is very critical. Here's an example of one particular company. This was their stock price last year. It reached 2,005 rupees. It's an Indian company. There was a huge disinformation campaign about this company. The stock price crashed 50% in 11 days, at which point the board called an agency in. There was basically about 6 weeks' worth of enormous digital work that was done, which included site redesign, Q&As, a global search campaign, YouTube campaign, MetaCafe campaign, and that company's market cap went up by $1 billion in the next 6 months. It's an Indian company. Right? It was done in India last year, entirely digitally. It never hit television, never hit press. So we're really talking in a world where you have to be able to react extremely quickly to be able to make changes. And those changes are measurable. They mean a lot of money, as you can see around you. Today we do things like real-time sentiment analysis and valuation. So these are, for example, sentiment for one of the brands we track. At any point in time, we're sitting and saying, okay, what happened that day? Why was the negative spiking that day? What was the positive spiking that day? On a real-time basis, we're saying, are people liking me, not liking me, liking me, not liking me? What happened today? What happened yesterday? Plus, I've blacked out the names. We're seeing, okay, this is a negative sentiment. So we're seeing, what is the negative sentiment of my competition? So we're seeing, okay, it's higher today, lower today. So really, on a day-by-day basis, all of this is stuff we're already doing today in India. So this is the world we're getting into, which is not the genteel world we used to be in. Plus, this is for a mobile company. On a real-time basis, we're telling the company what their complaints are about. The people are auto-subscribed to VAS. What's really happening is this poor GPRS connectivity, because we're tracking everything through social chatter. We're picking it up on Twitter, on Facebook, on Mouthshut, on consumer courts, and other places, and we're able to go back and say, okay, you have a problem with GPRS connectivity in Chhattisgarh. Please go in and look at it. So this is really the new era marketing manager. It's a really interesting world that's forming around us. So what does this new religion of marketing look like? The traditional model was, you do research, you analyze, you plan, and then you go do your campaign. And on the customer service front, it was, let me listen to what people are saying, let me react, and then let me figure out and plan. This is how 2 different streams in 2 different silos in businesses worked. Today it's all one. Customer service, marketing, brand marketing is all really just one particular thing. If you go out and try to market to a consumer on Twitter, he says, well, why don't you fix my earlier model? It isn't working. You can't say, well, I'm marketing, talk to customer service. He says, look, I'm talking to you, you're a company, you fix it. So all the silos that we used to have earlier have to kind of collapse or be centralized in one place. So we start with listening, then you react. So very much like we talked about, it's not about think, aim, fire. It's not ready, aim, fire. It's ready, fire, aim, fire, aim. You first react, make sure that you're solving a problem. Then you go around, analyze it. Then you go out and do your outbound campaign. And then you keep going all the way around. This is pretty much what the new system, at least the first avatar that we're seeing forming around us, looks like. Here's an example. Listen. Here's a brand. You can see every day we listen, in this case, about 7,000 mentions of the brand. This is an Indian brand in India. So you're sitting and saying, what did people talk about? This brand was talked about 7,000 times today. What was it talked about? Positive, negative? What were the topics talked about? Then you react. Okay, how many of these issues were critical? How many needed to be handled right away? How many do I need to take notice? How many do I need to ignore? And you can see the brand out here because it's in a public interest. So what are the things that needed sorting out? So somebody has an issue with their bank account. Somebody has an issue with resetting passwords. All of that is again done. This is an advertising agency at work, handling customer stuff for a brand, because that's really part of what brand management is. Then you go down to planning and saying, okay, fine, where are all my mentions? What's important? What's not important? And then you start your proacting and say, now let me build my apps and so on and so forth. Right? It's very different. And as you do this, the new process is relentless and endless. It just keeps going on and on. Some brand customers are more active on weekends. So all of us in advertising tend to go home at 5 p.m. or 8 p.m. on a Friday. What happens to all the customers who come in on Saturday and Sunday? So actually, what we do know now is that, at least for this particular firm that I'm associated with, the creative guys now work 7 days a week. We work in shifts. And we're probably the first advertising firm in the world where people have to work in shifts because the market doesn't sleep. The market doesn't sleep, the consumers don't sleep. Guess what? The copywriters don't sleep. Or at least they have to work with timings that suit that particular market. It's a very different world we're going into. So what does this all mean to you guys who are out there here in MICA or in marketing? It's an opportunity to be global from day one. You don't have to come out and say, I will work on Rasna or I will work on Vimal because these are Gujarat brands. You can be working on global brands from day one, and you can be working on them from your dorm room on your laptop. Everything is really, really connected. So we have guys who sit in Bombay and work on brands around the world, and there's nothing that stops you guys from doing it from here. Two, it's an opportunity to create your own global brand. You don't have to sit back and say, what do I need to do first here around me? You can really create a brand that has a global reach. I'll give you an example of a company that I advised. 4 guys, in Delhi, were sitting in a small room in Janakpuri. They created a product that sold in 96 countries. And the 4 of them didn't even own passports. They'd never gone outside the country. The product did not sell in India. They were selling the product in 96 companies from a small room in Janakpuri without ever having traveled outside India, without having the ability to travel outside India. It's maybe an opportunity for you guys to have multiple careers. I want to be a rock singer and I want to be a marketer. I want to be sitting on a beach in Goa and managing 3 brands around the world. Well, guess you can. This world really makes it possible. Right? And maybe in some way, this is the time for us and this billion-odd people that we've created in this country. It's an interesting way for us to be able to stand up and be noticed, because the real value that's created in any economy is created on the brands that you create and the brands that you manage. It's not at the production end, it's always at the consumption end. And I'll just probably end by saying the new rules and processes still being formed. This is our sense of what's the first avatar that's getting created out there. And out of this chaos will come all this opportunity. We are in this state of chaos now. Opportunity is there. I really do think there's never been a better time to be a brand person or a marketer. Will some of you invent this future of media and marketing? I certainly hope so. My name is Mahesh, and I hope that was nice. Thank you.